and welcome. You're watching We the People. I'm Rishika Baru. As the government has proposed a near complete overhaul of the criminal justice system under the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, some sections of the Road Safety Act have also seen a sea change. But following a very dramatic protest by truck associations that got life as we know it to a standstill in several parts of the country, the government has now put the new amendments on hold. Before we get into the larger debate, let's break down the details of what has happened. Under the new law, there were many changes that were made specifically to the hit and run cases, which roughly account for around 15% of all road fatalities in our country. Under the new law, a jail term of up to 10 years or a fine of 7 lakh rupees was introduced if a truck driver flees an accident spot or fails to report an accident to the authorities. The Indian Penal Code, the erstwhile Indian Penal Code, the punishment for this offence was only up to 2 years of imprisonment. So truckers, of course, were upset. They said that this is a law that was passed without any consultation with the stakeholders. They also said that this would expose drivers to exploitation if they are unfairly accused. Further, many also said that they feared being lynched at the accident site if they didn't flee from there. The law, of course, like I said, has now been put on hold. There will be a wider deliberation and consultation with the stakeholders before these amendments are reconsidered. But this entire episode has once again raised several questions about the state of Indian roads and our safety. This is, remember, a story that concerns you and it concerns me as pedestrians and as drivers. Let me put this entire story in context for you in terms of the data. According to the United Nations, India ranks number 1 in global road fatalities globally. The data that we have exposes some very alarming trends. Forget the UN data. For a moment, let's just look at the Indian government's own data. There are over 1.6 lakh people who were killed in around 4.5 lakh accidents, and this is government data for 2022. Further, over half of all the road crash deaths that took place on national highways and state highways, despite the fact that national and state highways, remember, make up for only 5% of the total road network. On an average, and if you look at the law of averages and you look at this data, it's really startling. India witnesses an average of 1,200 road accidents every single day. On an average, there are 19 people, I repeat, 19 people dying every hour in our country because of road accidents. As staggering as these averages are, what's worse is that there has only been a further worsening of this statistic because there was a 12% increase in road accidents in 2022 as compared to 2021. Now, the government claims that India's road network has grown by 59% under the Modi government. We now have the second largest road network after the United States. But remember, the second largest road network in the world is also the most unsafe road network in the world. The question, therefore, we ask on the show tonight is, what's the highway to safer roads in India? And joining me on the broadcast, we have a very special panel joining us on the broadcast today. It is my privilege to introduce to you Ashutosh Srivastav. He's an advocate of the Supreme Court. Navdeep Asija, he's a traffic advisor of the Punjab government. I have Rajendra Kapoor, he's the president of the All India Motor and Good Transport Association. Harman Singh Sidhu, who is an accident victim. He is somebody who has been through a terrible road accident over 2 decades ago and has been wheelchair ridden since then, and he exposes a very interesting element of the entire road safety issue in our country. We also have Shantanu Bhasin, who is a family member of a hit and run victim who now is also a trustee with the Muskan Road Safety NGO. I thank you all very much for being with us on the show. And we also have a very vibrant audience with us on Be the People this evening. There are a lot of law students and people who are connected very closely with road safety and road and transportation in our country. So to begin with, if I can just come to you, Ashutosh Srivastav, as somebody who understands the law, there were some very stringent provisions that were proposed under the new law, which have of course been put on hold right now. And, we do need some very strict laws as far as road safety in our country is concerned, because look at the statistics that I have just spelled out.
Yes. See, what I would like to say here is that in India, as you rightly stated, the number of accidents and also the number of people dying, and we are almost leading in the entire world into such kind of fatal accidents and deaths. And in many of these cases, when the vehicle driver runs away from the spot, the person who dies or is injured is not given proper medication, and the person dies also. And on the other hand, suppose the vehicle which hit that person is insured under the third party insurance, and accordingly the insurance company could have paid under the MSCT, motor accident company tribunal, could have paid to the victim or the family, but it is not paid because the vehicle is unknown and the person who was driving is unknown, and consequently the insurance policy is
Right.
also not known and it is not claimed by the victims or the victim's family. So ultimately it was a loss in the financial way also, because the earning member, if
Okay.
dying in the
Okay.
family, was also a loss.
Okay.
Secondly, that these kind of accidents were not properly reported, and we have seen the data across the globe, like in US also. These are, there are stringent laws in other countries like Singapore, Sri Lanka.
Yes.
They have also increased the punishment from 2 years to 5 years to put law and order in place. And see, there was also misuse of the law because it
Yes.
was under punished. So many a times, many accidents were, planned also. We
Okay.
have seen in many of the
You
cases.
raise, Ashutosh Srivastava, a
So,
very important point when you say that this hit and run law actually is also very important, because it's imperative in a certain sense for insurance and compliance later on to take place. So, in order to fix accountability and culpability and actually make sure that the culprit is booked, is essential for further procedures to take place. So that's a very interesting point that you make. I'm going to ask a couple of follow-up questions on the hit and run law and then move to the larger angle of road safety. We also have Shantanu Bhasin, who's a family member of a hit and run victim, who's also associated with an NGO, joining us. Shantanu Bhasin, how do you look at this entire story?
Well, it's a step in the right direction, I would say that. But laws have to be strict, the process has to be just. That is what I see is lacking here. Now, as you have pointed out, I myself have been a victim of such a scenario. So I definitely want stricter laws against anyone who has engaged in hit and run scenario. However, we do know from our field work that it's always the bigger vehicle which is put on fault. Which is why you see these truckers protesting, because they do know that there is going to be no process of investigation, proper investigation, and they are going to be blamed for the accident. Otherwise, can you explain the reason why they are being protesting without even the law being put in place? Why have they already started protesting? Because one thing is there's rampant corruption in the overall scenario related to road safety and many other sectors associated with that. Two, it lacks the process of investigation, which is much needed. It's not always the bigger vehicle which is at fault. Smaller vehicle can also be at the fault. Another thing I would like to point out is that I guess it's not only applicable to the truck unions which are protesting against this law. It's not only applicable on truckers, but it's also applicable on two-wheeler riders, on car vehicle owners, on any other person who's using motorized transport on the road. If he's engaged in hit and run, he would be put to task because of this law. So while this law is welcome, I think there needs to be a proper process of investigation in place, which should include forensic and scientific elements into it. Right now, we are lacking that completely.
Okay, so you're saying that the law that was proposed is welcome, but it still has several lacunae that, in a certain sense, need to be that need to be looked at. I also want to get in perspective from stakeholders. So there was, of course, a protest, after which the government very quickly, within 48 hours almost, has put this law on hold. Rajendra Kapoor is the president of the All India Motor and Good Transport Association. If I can come to you, how do you look at this new law? What were your main problems? Remember, hit and run is just a very small part of road safety. Like I said, the statistics show that about 15%, it's not a small statistic, but comparatively a small statistic, only 15% of fatalities are due to hit and run cases. What were your main problems with, the government increasing the jail term and the fine?
Good evening, Madam. I just want to know, you have given the data. How many accident the data you have given taken place in the highways and in the city? You have not clarified that. There are multiple reasons to run away. Because if accident taken place in the highways, there are many villages and many places where driver is abandoned. And जो भीड़ होती है वो ड्राइवर को मार देती है, आदमी को, जिसको द पर्सन हु हिट either by his fault or the bigger one fault. The public, local public, ड्राइवर अगर वहां रुक जाता है तो ड्राइवर को छोड़ती नहीं. पता चला जिसको चोट लगी उसको तो इतनी चोट नहीं लगी, बट ड्राइवर के साथ बड़ा हादसा हो जाता है. Then if government fixes any responsibility towards drivers on highway, and अभी मैं आपको, sorry, I'm not that much good in English speaking. I am very
no, sir, it's fine. You can please make your point in Hindi. No problem.
अभी हम परसों आगरा गए थे, हम अपनी कार में थे. मैडम, there are multiple places जहां पर कि बीच में से एकदम से इधर नो, मतलब कोई सेंस के लेफ्ट साइड से आ रहा है, कोई राइट साइड से आ रहा है, कोई भी कहीं भी घुस जाता है. तो देन व्हाट विल द बिगर वन से? उसकी क्या है? अगर आप थाने में कंप्लेंट लिखवाने चले जाएं तो थाने वाले कंप्लेंट नहीं लिखते. कई केसेस ऐसे देखे गए जहां पर कि ड्राइवर को इसलिए मार दिया गया क्योंकि उसकी गाड़ी ढाबे पे खड़ी है और कोई मोटरसाइकिल आके या स्कूटर आकर के उसमें घुस गया या कार घुस गई तो गांव वालों ने उसको मार दिया. नासिक का एक केस है, हमारे एक अच्छे ट्रांसपोर्टर मित्र हैं, उनकी गाड़ी को वहां पे ड्राइवर को जिंदा जला दिया गया. हु विल पे फॉर दैट? हु विल बी रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर दैट? और एक चीज और मैं इसमें कंफर्म कर दूं कि यह अभी तक जो ये ट्रांसपोर्ट एजिटेशन जो भी हुआ है, दिस एजिटेशन वाज स्पॉन्सर्ड बाय ड्राइवर्स ओनली. किसी भी ट्रांसपोर्ट एसोसिएशन ने
Very important points that you've raised. One is that, the mindset, so to speak, is always one where, the fault or the blame is squarely placed on the driver of quote unquote the bigger vehicles, which is why we saw truckers come out in such large numbers in this protest. The other very important point that you have raised is the concept of mob justice. A lot of times hit and run or, drivers tend to flee the accident site almost immediately because of the fear of being lynched. We have Gul Hassan Rizvi. He's a bus operator from Delhi. He's with us in the studios as well. You had a point to make. क्या होता है ऐसे typically in cases में? जी बोलिए, आपकी आवाज़ आ रही है.
मैम, मैं बस ऑपरेटर भी रहा हूँ और ड्राइवर भी रहा हूँ. जो आजकल जो एक्सीडेंट होते हैं वो ज़्यादातर जो है दूसरे की गलती से होते हैं. ड्राइवर जो घर से अपना निकलता है तो वो अपना दिमाग को शांत करके निकलता है और ये सोचता है कि मैं जैसे घर से सुबह ठीक ठाक निकला हूँ ऐसे ही शाम को अपने बच्चों के पास पहुँचूँ. ड्राइवर एक स्कूटर ड्राइवर भी है, बाइक ड्राइवर भी है, कार ड्राइवर भी है. तो हर आदमी को, हम लोगों को ये सोचना चाहिए कि अगर हम अपनी गाड़ी को चला रहे हैं तो उसको कम स्पीड में चलाएँ और अपने ध्यान से चलाएँ, उसको ज़्यादातर ध्यान दें. और जो लिंचिंग का कारण ये होता है कि किसी भी बड़े व्हीकल से एक्सीडेंट हुआ है तो पब्लिक क्या करती है, पब्लिक उसको मतलब ये नहीं कि पेशेंट को ले जाए, जिसको चोट लगी है उसको ले जाए, उसको ले जाने के बजाय ड्राइवर के ऊपर ही चिपट जाते हैं. इतनी देर में चाहे वो दम ही तोड़ दे, मौके पे दम तोड़ देता है और ड्राइवर को इतना बुरी तरीके से पीटते हैं. तो इसमें कानून का संशोधन हो. मतलब सरकार से मैं यही कहना चाहूँगा कि भाई ड्राइवर कोई भी गलती नहीं करता है. ड्राइवर जब घर से निकलता है तो ये सोच के नहीं निकलता कि मैं गलती करूँ. गलती अचानक ही हो जाती है, किस कारण से हुई उसको
इसी रीजन से उसे एक्सीडेंट बोला जाता है।
एक्सीडेंट बोले,
ये
जी।
जो आप लिंचिंग का पॉइंट बोल रहे हैं, which Rajendra Kapoor has also highlighted, I think is an important one, that a lot of times they flee because of the fear of being beaten up or lynched by a mob of people. And like you heard Gul Hassan say, that from their point of view, it's also the fact that a lot of times people just take the law into their own hands, and want justice served then and there instead of actually helping the accident victim. I also want to talk about the other aspect of this before we bring in Navdeep Asija into the conversation to sort of broaden the scope of this entire discussion. I want to quickly get in a word from Harman Sindhu. He is a road accident victim. He had a near-death experience several years ago. He's been wheelchair-bound since that accident. Harman, आप अपने एक्सीडेंट के बारे में, tell us a little bit about your accident. What happened with you and how long did it take you to actually get help?
See, my road accident took place in year 1996, October of 1996. That's nearly 27 years back. So, first, I haven't seen a big change since that time till date. Right, as far as road safety is concerned, there are
what happened in your case?
points.
Can you tell us exactly what happened in your case?
Coming back to that.
Yeah.
So I love going uphill in the mountains. I live in Chandigarh, which is very close to the Himalayan range. So I, along with my friends, have gone uphill. That's how we term it. So during one of such visits, the car rolled down into a gorge because part of the road was eroded. It was totally not there. So the car fell down. I was sitting in the back seat. So as a passenger, I had a responsibility as well.
Yes.
But we were 4 friends. Everybody else, thank God, was perfectly fine. But I sustained a spinal injury. So it took us around 2.5 hours from Chandigarh to reach that place, a very nice place called Renuka Lake in Himachal Pradesh. But it took us more than 12 hours to come back from there.
Right.
And the first lift that we got was from a truck. A truck driver was the one who stopped for us. So the whole hit and run thing is about not blaming the truckers, but
Yes.
he was the one who helped and stopped. Always thankful to him. And then it was a small pickup. Third vehicle was a van, which was supposed to be an ambulance, in which 6 feet tall person cannot lie down straight. So everybody knew that a person with a spinal injury has to lie down straight. But the only option we had was to reach a tertiary care hospital, that is a specialized hospital. So it took us more than 12 hours to reach back to Chandigarh. So we changed 3 vehicles.
Yes.
And took so long. So that is one important aspect. So in this whole scenario of road safety, there are 2 things. One is the authorities and second is the road user.
Yes.
So whenever it comes to the road users, let it be the
think
Motor Vehicle Act.
2 important takeaways, and I want to take this to Navdeep Asija as well, because while of course we've talked extensively about the hit and run law, which is now, like I said, the new provisions have been put on hold. Hit and run is one constituent, one element of road safety that has highlighted a larger problem. Navdeep Asija, look at the story of Harman Singh Sidhu, a 6 feet tall man. 12 hours later, finds some kind of a makeshift ambulance in which he can't lie down straight despite a spinal injury. This also highlights the fact that we have unsafe roads. You have Mr. Rajendra Kapoor, who made the point of, expressways that have been laid down in our country, but they still have these ad hoc entries and exits where you have people coming in all over. So it's also about the planning with which these roads are being made and what kind of emergency services are available despite this vast road network that we have. These are larger issues that need to be addressed.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. I mean, when it comes to the road accidents, so it has 3 important components. One is the road, second is the road user, and third is the vehicle. So just framing the laws only for the human error may not help actually, and since based on the road safety science which has emerged, all the developed nation has actually accepted that we have to design our system considering these human error, this human nature. Unfortunately, this is not happening, and we are formulating the laws based on the intuition, not even a single data or any learning from the developed nation is supporting such kind of strict punishment. So the different countries have a different scenarios, and instead of learning from there, we are again burning our own fingers. I mean, I can give you the example.
But there is a larger question about compliance. So if you have stricter laws, it would ensure stricter compliance. But I think that there has to be a larger infrastructure that has to support it as well.
Yes. I mean, I just simple take the example of a section 135 of a Motor Vehicle Act, which was introduced in 1988, which says that, our highways are supposed to have a rest area and we are supposed to do the complete crash investigation.
Yes.
So the entire country, not more than 500 crash investigation. And you simply mentioned that how many accidents are taking place.
Yes.
You can imagine, that we don't have any experts in our country, and that subjective is not even being taught in our universities.
Yes.
I mean, in a proper way. So wherever there is in terms of, some investigations are happening, that is only for the claim compensation by the insurance company.
Yes.
Again, that is not a technical evaluation that who is at fault.
Okay.
Because if
I have limited time. I have limited time left on the show. I know, Ashutosh, you want to come in very quickly. I have audience members. Make your point very quickly. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Spurs Singh. I'm from Faculty of Law, Delhi University. I'm a law student, and I want to say that making law is one thing, and implementing and enforcing it is another thing. The BNS provisions are very relevant. As per my observation, I have saw the provisions over there. और जैसा कि मैंने देखा उसमें डेफिनेशन बोलती है whoever causes death of any person without whoever causes death of any person by rash and negligent driving and may escape by without reporting
So
to the police
you agree
official.
with the provisions? You think we need stringent provisions?
No, I am taking on it without reporting to a police official or magistrate, and soon after he escape it. And the punishment there is total controversy over the punishment and the implementation.
What's your point?
How
Very quickly.
my point is that कि law बनाना एक बात है और जो लॉ को इम्प्लीमेंट करना है वो दूसरी बात है. जस्टिस एक मिनट जो बीएनएस जो प्रोविजन है बोला भारतीय न्याय संहिता वो न्याय की बात करता है. जस्टिस तभी इंसान को मिल सकता है जब दोनों चीजें होंगी, लॉ का इन्फोर्समेंट प्लस law banana.
Okay, great point. Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Hardik Dimania, and what my friend just said. So during my stint at Law Commission of India, while we were discussing these laws, so we were wondering that when a person causes accident, so at that point of time he's in a state of dilemma, like he just wants to run away. And like Rajendra sir said, so in that case there are two elements. First is he's causing accident. Second is that he's not reporting it to the police officials. Let's say he escapes from there, and later on, like in a short span of time, he reports it to the police officer.
So there should be that provision.
I think
okay.
Then
I have a minute left on the show. Very quickly, very important point that you made, that if it's reported later, it should not be counted as a hit and run, quote unquote.
Yeah, it is not counted that way.
You also have a point to make. Go ahead.
Why the final verdict of any hit and run case takes so long despite having full
That's
evidence?
what it all boils down to, doesn't it? Ashutosh Srivastava, I'll give you a very quick 30 seconds to respond. Ultimately, it all boils down to the justice system, doesn't it?
So just now, one my friend said about reporting it. So it is basically reporting within the reasonable time.
Yes.
Now, if we see the Supreme Court's judgment in 2014, where in the case of Surinder Singh versus State of Haryana, it clarified that no sooner, it should be informed sooner means within the reasonable time.
Yes,
so within
whenever the next,
hours,
I suppose whenever the next police station appears on the highway or the road or whatever.
And I want to, apart from that, so that will be considered as a reasonable time, and that will be considered. Then second, 2 points more I want to highlight. One, that my one friend said that making laws for human error. See, first of all, I want to clarify that human error is not an offense here also. See, we are talking about negligence.
Yes.
See, negligence is something different. Negligence has to be
You make
proved.
an important point, but I'm going to have to cut you short.
Then
Rajendra
thirdly,
Kapoor, I have 10 seconds left on the show. Rajendra Kapoor.
Thirdly,
मेरा कहना ये है कि दो बातें हैं. इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बनाया जाता है तो उसको रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशन भी बनाने चाहिए उसको फॉलो करने के लिए. और दूसरा, क्यों नहीं गवर्नमेंट एक हेल्पलाइन नंबर पूरी इंडिया के लिए जारी कर देती, जिससे कि ड्राइवर अगर किसी से गलती हो गई, देखिए रोड पे चलेगा, जानबूझ के कोई नहीं मारता, तो वो उस नंबर पे इन्फॉर्म कर दे कि मेरे
Very good point. Very good point. These are practical solutions. I'm afraid I'm completely out of time. It's an issue, like I said, which concerns you and me. We'll continue to talk about several such issues here on We the People. If you've tuned in tonight, thanks for watching.